The New York Times spoke with several former girlfriends, and while some women described Plattner as a fun, caring partner, 3 women who were romantically involved with him described volatile and, quote, toxic relationships. One woman, a Virginia conservative who's worked for right-leaning groups, said he, quote, regularly grabbed her by the shoulders, sometimes hard enough to leave marks, and on one occasion yanked her out of a cab by her wrist after an argument when she wanted to stay in the car. The Times notes that several other former girlfriends gave different accounts, referring to Plattner as a, quote, gentle giant and super kind. Plattner himself responded to the allegations in an MS Now exclusive last night with Chris Hayes.
Whether it's being accountable for my online behavior at an earlier part of my life, whether it's realizing that a tattoo I had was harmful to some folks, I immediately got it covered up, whether it's being accountable to my wife, which everybody has very publicly learned about. These are things that, like, accountability is important to me, and I'm going to continue being honest and accountable about things that are real, but I am going to push back against allegations that are just patently untrue.
Joining me now is Emma Davis, a reporter with the Maine Morning Star, which is part of our state's newsroom partnership. Emma, the thing that we continue hearing is that voters are going to be the ones to decide. And of course, you've been speaking with voters in Maine since this story broke. What have they been saying? Is it wavering their support for Plattner at all? And is it that their skepticism is growing as each new turn of these stories come out, or are they just sort of taking it in totality? What's the sense?
Yeah, so the latest controversies definitely underscore the test that this race highlights, which is how much Mainers will weigh his messy personal life against the policies he's advocating for. I spoke with a voter just this morning, a moderate Democrat who had previously endorsed our governor, Janet Mills, who, of course, has since suspended her campaign. But this voter was essentially saying she's still going to cast her vote for Mills in the primary, but that she couldn't imagine not voting for Plattner in the general. And in doing that, she's speaking to the larger stakes of this seat being consequential, of course, for the balance of power in Congress. She, like many others, still question, couldn't Democrats have vetted him better? She knows other more people that have some similar progressive stances, but don't come with the baggage. But for herself and for people she knows, politics in Maine really has always been about your community, your family, all these what are often called kitchen table issues. So that's also very likely to take precedent for many voters over a lot of the controversies that we've seen.
You know, one of the conversations that we were having in our last hour with former Congressman Max Rose is this idea that Democrats, both voters and electeds, are sort of grappling with if they want the perfect to be the enemy of the good here, citing all of the various controversies that Plattner is facing, not just now, but in the recent months and weeks prior to this. Some of them are up on the screen in a graphic. And I wonder if that's the grappling that you're finding in your conversations on the ground. Are they of the mindset that it's enough to vote blue no matter who?
Yeah, I mean, this moment reminds me a lot of what one voter told me back in the fall when some of these initial revelations were coming out about Plattner's controversial online comments. And this voter said, Washington need not apply. Mainers will decide for themselves. And I think something not too often discussed nationally, but really top of mind for voters that I speak to here is also Plattner's pitch beyond his campaign himself, that he views his Senate bid as a means to building a broader organizing coalition. His campaign, for example, leveraged its resources to back a Democratic candidate in a local special election earlier this year, and that candidate ended up getting elected. So many voters have told me that the bigger aim is also what keeps them sticking by him. So there's certainly more factors at play for Maine voters here.
Yeah, coattails are really important. But I wonder if we can look at the other side of the political ledger, because all of this is ultimately Democrats' latest attempt to unseat Susan Collins, who has proven resilient in past re-election battles. And I wonder what voters are saying about her. I thought it was a fascinating split screen last night of Plattner defending himself against this latest string of allegations, while Collins was celebrated in the Senate for casting her 11,000th consecutive vote.
Certainly, a lot of voters that I've spoken with throughout the entirety of the campaign have expressed concern about Collins's record. Of course, she has been reelected time and time again, so there's certainly a lot of voters in Maine who plan to continue to back her and have in the past. But I think especially with the recent accusations coming to light, a lot of people are urging more focus on the issues and on her record as well.